The Eagles' preseason finale against the Jets might have looked like a throwaway game on the schedule, but it told us more about this roster than any box score ever could. Behind the scoreline of a 19-17 win, we got answers to some of the biggest questions heading into Week 1, and we saw some hidden storylines unfold before the first whistle even blew. Because in the NFL, it's not always about who plays. Sometimes, the bigger clues come from who doesn't. Friday night, several Eagles were spotted in street clothes, and that told us everything about where they stand. Adoree Jackson, now officially locked in as the CB2 starter. Jair Campbell, who edged out Jeremiah Trotter Jr. in one of camp's fiercest battles, proving that athleticism and playmaking win in crunch time. That decision alone could shape the Eagles' defense when they line up against Dallas in less than 2 weeks. But the biggest sigh of relief came before kickoff. A.J. Brown was finally back on the field, running routes again for the first time in nearly 3 weeks. The hamstring scare had Eagles fans holding their breath, but seeing him cut and move was the moment Philly needed. The coaching staff is being cautious, but the message is clear. Brown is gearing up for Week 1. The Eagles didn't just beat the Jets Friday night. They revealed who's earned trust, who's been left behind, and who's racing the clock to be ready for the season opener. Do you think the coaches made the right call rolling with Jair Campbell over Jeremiah Trotter Jr. at linebacker? The Eagles' offense has been holding its breath waiting for answers, and it looks like we might finally get some clarity. Reports say A.J. Brown could be back on the practice field as early as Monday or Tuesday, which would put an end to all the hamstring drama that's been hanging over this team. If he's truly ready, it's going to be a massive sigh of relief for fans and coaches who know how much this offense needs him at full strength. But while A.J. works his way back, another wideout gave Philadelphia fans something to cheer about: rookie John Mechie. After only a couple of days in the playbook, he hit the field against the Jets and immediately made his mark. First play, first throw, 14 yards. Simple, efficient, and a statement that he belongs. On another route, he burned his defender, but the ball sailed too high. Still, the takeaway was clear. This kid isn't just here to learn slowly. He's here to compete, and he's already showing flashes of being a real weapon in this system. Then we turn to the defense, where things weren't quite as comforting. Azeez Ojulari, a player many believed had locked up his roster spot, was surprisingly out there in the preseason finale. That's usually not the best sign, and to make it more complicated, Patrick Johnson continues to show why the coaching staff can't ignore him, adding yet another sack to his preseason highlight reel. Suddenly, the edge rusher room feels like a battlefield where nothing is guaranteed. And just when it looked like Ojulari was the story, late-round pick Antwan Powell Rillen stormed in with a strip sack that reminded everyone why the Eagles drafted him. It's the kind of play you wish came earlier in camp, but it was enough to plant a seed of doubt. Could this kid force his way into the conversation? His burst, his motor, his ability to get the ball out. It's exactly what this defense thrives on. The wide receiver room feels like it's gaining strength with Mechie stepping up, but the edge rushers? That's a storm brewing, and Tuesday's roster cutdown could bring some hard decisions. When the second half started against the Jets, it finally felt like the Antwan Paling we were promised back on draft night had shown up. The flashes of a sack machine, the guy who tore up college football, they were there. The problem? It came too late. He hadn't made that kind of noise all training camp, and one half of football isn't enough to save his spot on the 53-man roster. At best, he's heading for the practice squad. But maybe, just maybe, that game was his wake-up call, the moment he finally figured out what it takes to rise in the NFL. That was the theme of the night for Philadelphia. Bubble players playing their hearts out, knowing cut day is coming fast. Perry Nickerson stole the spotlight with a massive turnover for the defense. Scrappy, relentless, and looking sharper than Yokorian Bennett, Nickerson made life hard on the coaching staff. He's a veteran, a good teammate, and everyone in the locker room respects him. But even with a performance like this, it still feels like there just isn't enough room for him in that crowded cornerback room. Not everyone could turn a big play into a lifeline. Safety Louis Cine finally got his name called with an interception, but it was too little, too late. One flash play in August can't make up for an entire summer of injuries and quiet practices. His road in Philly looks like it's ending here. On offense, another forgotten man tried to write his own story. Terrace Marshall Jr., once a camp standout, fought to prove he belongs. While Darius Cooper barely played, a clear sign he's already locked into the roster, Marshall was grinding. 5 catches, 51 yards, always a target when Kyle McCord looked his way. He was battling, but the timing feels cruel. The breakout came too late, just like Paling. And then there was the steady leg of Jake, the Make Elliott. 4 for 4 on field goals, from 23 all the way to a booming 53. If Elliott is truly back to his best, the Eagles' offense just added another weapon, points guaranteed from anywhere on the field. But the true MVP of the night? Running back Montrell Johnson. He ran like a man who refused to be forgotten, 15 carries, 57 yards, and his first NFL touchdown. Speed, power, fight, he put it all on tape. The problem is injuries slowed him down all camp, and this sample might not be enough to win him a roster spot. Still, you could feel his emotion in every carry. His words said it all. It felt great. My first NFL touchdown. I just wanted to finish my runs and show that physical back I can be. This game wasn't just preseason football, it was survival. Some players may have saved their futures, while others may have played in midnight green for the very last time. As good as Montrell Johnson looked, reality is harsh. He's not cracking this roster. The writing was on the wall the moment A.J. Dillon and Will Shipley sat out, and of course Saquon Barkley wasn't touching the field. Philly almost always carries 3 running backs, and those 3 are locked. Johnson's future, at least for now, is practice squad. And honestly, the Eagles would be smart to hold on to him, especially with Dillon sitting on just a 1-year deal heading into 2026. If no other team poaches him, Montrell might just be a name to circle for the future. Now, shifting from the hopefuls to the struggles, we've got to talk about Kyle McCord. The fact he played the entire game basically sounded the alarm for DTR. RIP to his Eagles tenure, because it looks like McCord has locked down the QB3 job. The problem? The tape was messy. One ugly interception, a handful of poorly timed sacks, and stretches where the offense just stalled out. He had flashes, sure, but you could feel the gap between him and Tanner McKee. That's exactly why this staff is so high on McKee. He just looks like a professional, while McCord still looks like a rookie drowning behind backups. McCord himself admitted it. Some good, some bad, a few throws he'd kill to take back. Classic rookie talk. He did just enough to win, but it never really felt like he commanded the offense. And with Dallas less than 2 weeks away, that's not the kind of comfort you want in your QB room. Which brings us to the concerning part. Tanner McKee's finger. On the surface, it sounded minor. No surgery, just a little setback. But reporters noticed during the game, McKee didn't take his right hand out of his pocket all night. He was holding things awkwardly with his left, clearly babying that throwing hand. That's not nothing. The team might downplay it, but this is officially worth watching. Because here's the truth, the Eagles don't want Kyle McCord as the backup quarterback against Dallas. They just don't. If McKee can't go, suddenly Dorian Thompson-Robinson might actually sneak onto the roster out of pure necessity. That's how fragile the situation is right now. And just to make things spicier, Albert Breer dropped a nugget Friday. Tanner McKee is already drawing trade interest around the league. Philly would need a pretty strong offer to even consider moving him, but the fact his name is buzzing outside the building tells you everything. Teams know he's legit. The Eagles' QB room is fine for now, but it's balancing on a thin line. One bad update on McKee's finger, and suddenly things could get very, very interesting. The Eagles are about to face some tough choices. Tanner McKee once again showed why he's one of the most respected young quarterbacks in the league. He might not see the field much behind Jalen Hurts, but having him as that insurance policy feels priceless. If another team came calling, you'd almost have to ask for a king's ransom, and even then, keeping McKee might be smarter. Not every player, though, boosted their stock Friday night. Cornerback Yakorian Bennett looked more like a depth piece than a true starter, and that's a concern with stars like CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens waiting just days away. Wide receiver Aeneas Smith had flashes, but his punt return struggles stood out more than his catches. The Eagles invested in him, and you hope for that breakout moment, but it just hasn't come yet. Still, there were bright spots. Montreal Johnson ran with power, Patrick Johnson flashed at times, and John Mechie gave fans a glimpse of the playmaker he can become. These are the kinds of performances you cling to in the final preseason game, where rosters are on the line, and careers can change with one play. Now comes the hard part, roster cuts. Some players will see their dreams realized, others will see them crushed. The Eagles don't have to wait until Tuesday, and with teams like the Steelers and Panthers already making moves, don't be surprised if big news drops this weekend. Expect surprises, both cuts and keeps, because that's how this time of year always goes in Philly.